Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of the program. Now, Barb, most home sellers believe they should leave during the showings. What are the top 5 showing mistakes that agents make, and how should you avoid them?
Well, Richard, the whole idea behind opening up your home for the real estate community to show it to your buyers is to hopefully get enough buyers to come through your house so you get the best offers. That's the whole idea. And, every buyer is different in what they're looking for and what they want. So some buyers will love it and some buyers won't, right? But the behavior that we see can be extremely frustrating sometimes when agents are coming through the home. Now, first of all, I want to caveat this with buyers agents would prefer to go into your house and show it to their buyers without the home seller being there. But you don't have to leave. It's your home. If you are going to stay home for a showing, that's fine. It's probably more courteous not to hover and just say, hey, I'm here. If you have any questions, I'll get out of your way and nice to meet you. And that's it. Okay. But the reason why there's been this kind of industry norm and standard that the seller leave during showings is some sellers would walk the buyer through and point out all the flaws or find a way to talk them out of having interest. Now, we have that problem with real estate agents too. Real estate agents sometimes will, under the guise of being a fiduciary to their client, point out flaws and try to talk the buyer out of buying the home. And I call that the sales prevention business. It's not meant to be that way. The whole idea is to get the buyer to fall in love with the home. We are in the business of selling homes. So if they go in a home and they go, oh, wow, I really like this home, then the agent shouldn't be picking it apart or saying things like it's not worth that much because the buyer thinks it's worth that much. So it's really funny. This day and age, you have to expect that a majority of the home sellers are going to have cameras, right? Either inside or outside or both. You have to expect that you could be on camera when you're in somebody's house talking smack about their house. So don't do it. Wait until you're private at some other place if you want to talk about them. But it's okay to be in your own home. I actually had one seller a few years back. It was the first time selling home. She was home all the time. And the very first showing, the agent showed up and just confronted her and said, you're not supposed to be here. I have a fiduciary duty to my buyer. You can't talk to my buyer. And she's like, okay, well, I'll stay out of your way. Thank you for showing up. And then she called me. She goes, am I not supposed to be here in my own home? I don't have anywhere to go. I said, no, it's your house. Of course you can be there. Just ignore that. And then sure enough, to the exact same seller, a few days later, another agent did the same thing. It said, you're not supposed to be here during showings. And she looked at him and she goes, last I checked, I'm still in title. I own the house. And then he finally left her alone. But they're kind of crazy. And there's this weird sense of entitlement out there. Not every seller plays the game. Yes, we have to put the homes in the multiple listing service. We have to make it available for showings, but we're not the ones. The listing agent isn't the one that decides what offer the seller takes or whether or not they're going to allow showings or whether or not they're going to allow more showings. If you're late to the party, I'm sorry. I had one just a few weeks ago where this agent sent a really good cash offer to one of my listings. And the buyer, there were no showings yet. We weren't going to start showings until the open house. And so, the buyer, I made sure the buyer saw the home. I sent the offer to the seller. The seller said, we really want to consider that offer. I said, okay, well, I would feel better if the buyer physically went in and looked at the property. And the reason for that is that this property did kind of back to a heavily traveled street. I didn't want to have the house go under contract and then the buyer comes and looks at the home and says, oh, it's not what I thought, then it goes back on the market, because the automatic perception from other buyers is that there's something wrong with the house, not the buyer. So I told the seller, I said, I really feel more comfortable if I got arranged for a showing for this buyer to come and see the home and then check with them to make sure they're still in. And so that's exactly what happened. We went under contract, we canceled all the rest of the showings. And oh my gosh, we got so much pushback from the other agents, like it was their entitlement to get in there and have an opportunity at it. But again, I'm not the decision maker. So crazy things happens on showings. I remember one time I had a vacant house and we staged it so it looked like somebody was living there. And this agent showed it. This was on a Sunday night. On Monday morning, 7:30, I get a phone call from the neighbor behind saying, hey, the back door of that house is wide open. Do you want me to go close it? And I said, I'll be right over. So I go over there. She had closed the door, which was very nice, neighborly thing to do. But, there's popcorn on the floor. There's junk all over the place. The toilets had been used and not flushed. It's like, what is going on? Wouldn't you hate that, Richard?
I would be disgusted by that, and I would be angry and extremely disappointed.
Yeah. So, but it happens so often. And usually if I go back and confront the agent, they'll deny it. Oh, it wasn't me. It must have been somebody else. Of course, they're the only ones that showed it.
Yeah.
So the other thing that really, really frustrates home sellers when it comes to showings is if they book an appointment. So the assumption in the seller's mind, if they have a showing scheduled, is that the buyer really wants to see that home and the buyer is qualified to buy that home and the buyer wants a home like that. But the sad truth is many of these tech companies like Zillow and Realtor.com will collect buyer contact information and sell buyer leads. So what happens is they have these beautiful tech platforms where the buyers like to search for houses. The houses are being fed up through the multiple listing service into like Zillow and Realtor.com. And then a buyer is searching there and they go, oh, I want to see that home. So they raise their hand, they give their contact information, and they're thinking they're reaching out to the listing agent, but you have to scroll way down to the very bottom to find the listing agent. Actually, what's happening is their contact information, their name, their email, their phone number is being given out to a half a dozen or more real estate agents all at once. So then the poor buyer's phone blows up with all these agents calling, I'll show it, I'll show it, I'll show it. And whoever gets the buyer on the phone is the first one to get the worm, right? So the conversation goes like this. Hey, I'd like to see that home. Is it available? And the agent goes, let me check. So they type and they look it up and go, oh yeah, would you like to see it? And the very first meeting is at the house. They don't know if they can buy a couch on Craigslist, let alone buy your home. They don't know what the buyer's looking for. They don't know the buyer search criteria. I call those Pop-Tart agents. They pop out of the toaster, show up at the house, and hope everything works out. They actually use a showing as a marketing technique. And I hate that part of the industry because they haven't sat down and educated the buyer about the home buyer process or about the market and find out what the buyer's looking for and make sure they have the best financing. All those things should be taking place before a showing, but they are not taking place. And it makes me crazy. Am I being a little bit too crazy right now, Richard?
I don't think so. I mean, these are annoying things, and I think it's the minimum somebody should expect. There's a relationship there, and there are expectations, and you're talking about realistic expectations.
I am. And the poor seller has gone to all this trouble to gather kids and dogs and make the bed and make the house look good, thinking that this next showing is going to be the one. It's going to be their buyer so they can finally finish showings. There are some sellers that will take less money to not have to deal with showing after showing after showing. Okay. It's not fun. So when they have an agent schedule a showing and then the agent no shows or forgets to cancel or shows up late or shows up early or leaves the lights on or leaves doors unlocked or forgets to leave a card, all those things Unfortunately, I get to hear the complaints about it, which I really don't like. Okay. But it's the level of professionalism that I am expecting. However, the sad truth is 81% of the agents in the Front Range area sell 3 or less homes a year, right? You could make more money working at McDonald's. That means these, what I call low information agents, pretty much are desperate to get in front of a buyer, and they think what the buyer wants is to see the house, which is true. But what the buyer really wants is success. So if they don't get formal training, they don't know. And actually, I didn't get formal training on how to show a house ever until I joined a professional group. So it's not okay to track mud or snow into a house. It's not okay to have a pizza party at somebody's house during the inspection. That was one thing that happened to me. And I've got this picture in front of me, Richard, on the Ring camera, as a pizza delivery gal showing up there, not with one pizza, but with 4 pizzas and a bag of wings. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you just can't make up, right? And the seller's calling me going, what are they doing? Are they squatting in my home? That's a really good question.
It doesn't look like a showing. It looks like they're ready to have a sleepover.
It looks like a good party. And of course, they're out of town. So I had to run over there and solve that issue. So you want to hire the agent that has solutions for these. And we do. So if you're thinking of making a move, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. You can always reach her at 719-301-3900. And we're talking, Barb, about moving. What are some agents showing nightmares, and what can home sellers do about that?
Well, you just need to know it's going to happen, and you got to hire the right agent that knows how to handle it. And we have systems in place. So you kind of get all the buyers in there at a short period of time. We minimize the showing window just to make your life easier, because this part of the process is not that easy. Richard?
You're listening to Your Real Estate Voice. That's Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Thinking of making a move? Call her 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Now, Barb, you have some hot new listings that are coming up and down the Front Range. Tell us about them.
We have a whole bunch. Beautiful home in Pueblo West, close to the reservoir in the upper 3s. A starter home in Fountain at 289. It's been updated. Adorable home by the Olympic Center at 285. A great starter home in Briargate at 399. Fabulous home down Mark Sheffel in the mid 4s. Another home that has 2 homes on one property at 499. A great home in the Powers Corridor at 499, a beautiful home on Alameda at 499, and a fabulous home on Heather Glen at 525. Plus, we have this amazing waterfront property on Jefferson Street in Pine, Colorado in the upper 6s, a stunning, stunning rancher with beautiful kitchen, beautiful master bath in the upper 9s. Absolutely spectacular estate in Florissant on Mohawk Heights at 2.5 million, and a great home on acreage down 115 close to Fort Carson in the upper 5s. If you are thinking to move, if you are thinking of making a move and you'd like to be on our list of some hot new listings coming soon, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You've been listening to Your Real Estate Voice. It airs every Saturday. And if you're thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. And remember, you can see replays of this show on Barb's YouTube channel, Barb Schlinker, or listen to the entire show on a podcast on all of the popular podcast platforms, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, many, many others. Thank you for listening. And to reach out to Barb, remember 719-301-3900. Thanks for listening. Barb, good talking with you. We'll talk to you next weekend.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.